911 calls to Rob Reiner's Brentwood home went largely unnoticed in 2019. No arrests, no red flags, no follow-ups that raised alarm. But today, after the brutal killing of Rob and Michele, those calls resurface, becoming some of the most important evidence in the case against their son, Nick Reiner. The horrific case of double murders that has stunned Hollywood may ultimately hinge on Nick Reiner's mental state, not just the crime itself. And those early police visits could be the first documented clues. The first call came on February 25, 2019, at 9:51 p.m., as per LAPD records reviewed by the Times. Police reportedly conducted a welfare check at the Reiner residence. Officers arrived within minutes, completed the call, and notified a supervisor. Nothing further was noted. 7 months later, on September 27, 2019, police reportedly responded again, this time to a mental health-related call involving an unidentified man at the same address. Officers later wrote there was no indication of mental illness as per the report. At the time, these calls appeared routine, but authorities now allege that Rob and Michele's son Nick, who lived in the guest house on their property, fatally stabbed them in their master bedroom last month. The mental state of Nick Reiner, who struggled for years with substance abuse and had reportedly been prescribed a schizophrenia drug, has now taken center stage in his legal battle. Legal analysts tell LA Times that these kinds of records often become critical, not because of what police found, but because of what they documented. The calls establish a paper trail. They place law enforcement at the home. They confirm concerns existed years before the killings. For Nick Reiner's legal team, these calls could help demonstrate a long-standing pattern, one that predates the crime and supports claims of mental instability. On December 14th, Rob Reiner and Michele Singer Reiner were found stabbed to death inside their Brentwood home. Authorities allege Nick committed the killings in the early hours of the morning. He now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, but prosecutors have offered no motive. And that absence, combined with Nick's mental health history, is exactly why the 911 calls have resurfaced. Nick Reiner's attorney, Alan Jackson, is known for building cases that hinge on nuance, not spectacle. Legal analysts suggest Jackson may now be working to reconstruct Nick's mental health timeline, including substance abuse history, prescribed schizophrenia medication, possible medication changes, prior interactions with police, behavioral patterns leading up to the killings. Loyola Law School professor Laurie Levinson tells LA Times this is not an all-or-nothing case. The defense could argue Nick lacked the ability to form intent, a critical element of first-degree murder. If the defense can show Nick could not form intent due to mental illness or medication effects, the legal outcome could change dramatically. First-degree murder requires premeditation and intent. Without that, prosecutors may be forced to consider second-degree murder, manslaughter, or even not guilty by reason of insanity. Each carries vastly different consequences, from life without parole to psychiatric commitment. Meanwhile, forensic experts are expected to focus on the days before the killings. UCLA psychiatrist Dr. Saul Fairstein says in the report that doctors will ask questions encompassing from Nick's possible mental decline, irrational behavior, to alarming changes, and if earlier signs were missed. Fairstein notes that even seemingly normal actions don't rule out psychosis. Nick Reiner is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of his parents, 78-year-old Hollywood director Rob Reiner and 70-year-old photographer Michele Singer Reiner. Prosecutors have also filed a special allegation that a knife was used in the killings, a detail that elevates the seriousness of the charges. Meanwhile, Nick has reportedly been removed from suicide watch inside one of Los Angeles County's most closely monitored jail facilities. When he entered the jail system on the morning of December 15th, authorities immediately placed him under suicide watch. He was considered a high-risk detainee, not only because of the severity of the charges, but because of documented mental health concerns and the extraordinary public scrutiny surrounding the case. Reiner, however, still remains housed in high observation housing, known as HOH, a specialized unit reserved for inmates with significant mental health needs. He is still held in solitary confinement, still monitored every 15 minutes, still escorted by deputies whenever he leaves his cell, and still under video surveillance during all movement outside his housing unit.
Gentlemen, I just have a couple of quick words. First of all, and most importantly, this is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. We all recognize that. Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. These need to be thoroughly but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. We ask that during this process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward, not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date, and that's all I have to say at this point. There may be more at some other point, but today we're going to rest on where we stand procedurally, which is this was a continuance of an arraignment. Nothing happened today substantively. We'll be back for an arraignment in the same department on the 7th of January. We'll see you then.
We'll be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michele Singer Reiner. These charges will be 2 counts of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, that being a knife. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. No decision at this point has been made with respect to the death penalty. We have requested, and currently Nick Reiner is being held without bail. Once the charges get filed this afternoon, Nick Reiner will be then brought to court. He is going through medical clearance, something that everybody who gets arrested and gets held in a Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department jail goes through. Once he is medically cleared, he will be brought to court to be arraigned on these charges. At that point, he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. So special circumstances is a situation where one of the enumerated factors that lead to elevating in some ways a first-degree murder case to a special circumstance first-degree murder case occurs. One of those special circumstances is called multiple murders. Here we have 2, and it qualifies under the definition of multiple murders to allege the special circumstance in this particular case.
December 14, 2025, LAPD officers from our West Los Angeles division responded to a death investigation at the 200 block of South Chadbourne Avenue, which is in the Brentwood section of Los Angeles. Upon entering the residence, they discovered the bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Reiner. Detectives from our Robbery Homicide Division Homicide Special Section immediately initiated a comprehensive investigation. The evidence gathered led to the arrest of their son, Nick Reiner, who was taken into custody later that night without incident in the Exposition Park section of our city. Today, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has formally filed charges against Mr. Reiner for the murder of his parents. This case is heartbreaking and deeply personal, not only for the Reiner family and their loved ones, but for our entire city. We extend our deepest condolences to all of those who were affected by this tragedy.
Okay, so in terms of how the Los Angeles Police Department became aware, it was a request from the Los Angeles Fire Department who responded to the scene first. We responded to their request for assistance at the scene of the incident. Our initial West LA officers that responded determined that a crime had occurred, and they immediately notified our Robbery Homicide Division. They've responded, and they have taken over the investigation since that point. He was arrested in a public area, in the Exposition Park area near the University of Southern California campus. He was approached by the officers and he was arrested without incident. There were no indications that there was no indication that he was going to resist or anything like that. He didn't flee or anything like that. He was taken into custody without issue, and he was transported to our police headquarters facility.